Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make a lovely split texture top featuring both the Suzette stitch for cups and the Almond stitch pulling body duties. A match made in crochet heaven. Speaking of, by now y'all already know the drill, but just in case you're new, Divine Modern Crochet Tutorials and Patterns are here with even more dropping twice weekly, so tell a friend and consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now, it's time to get on the show, so without further ado, for this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 210 grams of yarn. That's 475 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order. Enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us if you'd rather have a fruit smoothie in the morning or a coffee smoothie. Coffee smoothie for me. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook, and we're all going to get started with the point of our cups first, so it's going to start the same for every size, which is a chain 1. Now that we have our chain 1, we're all going to do our turning chain, so block off that last chain and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 doesn't count as a stitch. Now we're going to do 5 half double crochets into that first chain that we made, or the third chain from our hook. So starting with the yarn over. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the first chain that we made, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Then yarn over and pull through all 3. That is our first half double crochet, and now we're going to be doing a total of 5. So starting with the yarn over again, into that same chain with our second half double crochet, same chain with our third half double, and same chain with our fourth half double crochet, and again, same chain with our fifth half double crochet. Now everyone's row 1 is completed. We should all have a total of 5 stitches. So let's all get started on a row 2. So we're all going to chain 2. That's our turning chain, and flip our work. Now we're going to start off our row 2 with an increase, and that is going to be an increase of 4 half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, into that first stitch, we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet, same first stitch with a second, same first stitch with a third, same first stitch with a fourth. Now after that increase, we're going to do our first Suzette stitch. So how we're going to do that is just skip that following stitch, and into the next we're going to insert with 1 single. So insert, pull through 2, that is a single crochet, and also a double crochet into that same stitch. So yarn over, into that same stitch that a single crochet is in, we're going to insert, pull through. When we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our Suzette stitch. Now we should all have 2 stitches left at the end of our row 2, so we're all going to finish it off with 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. So skip that next stitch and into the last stitch from our previous row with 1 half double crochet. Everyone's row 2 is now completed. We should all have a total of 7 stitches. Now, as a really quick tip, we are all going to insert our stitch marker into the beginning of this row because this is going to be the top of our piece. Now that our stitch marker is into place, we're all going to get started on our row 3. So we're going to chain 2 again, that's our turning chain, and flip our work. Now whenever we're starting off a row with an increase, it's going to be an increase of 4 half double crochets. So yarn over. into that first stitch with 1, with 2, with 3, and with 4 half double crochets. We're going to do our Suzette stitches until we have 2 stitches left. So after that increase, we're going to skip that following stitch. Then into the next, we're going to do a Suzette stitch. Now, just as a really quick tip, each of our Suzette stitches will be worked into our previous row's single crochet to get the texture that we want. So as we can see, we are skipping that following stitch. We can tell that that's a double crochet because it is a little bit taller than that following stitch. So into that following stitch, insert again with a single, into that same stitch with a double. Now, since we're all working on our row 3, we should all have 4 stitches left. So we're going to skip that following stitch and into the next, insert with another Suzette stitch. Now, after a Suzette stitch, we're always going to skip that following stitch because that double crochet technically counts as that following stitch. If we work into there, we will accidentally be increasing. So skip that next stitch, into the next, insert with a single and a double crochet. And we should all have 2 stitches left. So all we're going to do from here is close off the row with an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, skip that following stitch. Into that next stitch, which should be the last, we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet. Into that same last stitch with a second. Into that same last stitch with a third half double crochet. Now everyone's row 3 is now completed. We should all have a total of 11 stitches. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of our 2 previous rows, so just to make sure we have it down, let's get started on the following 2. So getting started on row 4, we're all going to chain 2 and flip. Now for every even number row, we are starting the row off with an increase of 4 half double crochets, and it's going to end with just 1 half double crochet. So just as a refresher, into that first stitch, an increase of 4 half doubles, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. After that increase, we are going to skip 1 stitch and into the following, insert with a single and a double. And that is our Suzette stitch. After that, skip a stitch into the next, another Suzette stitch, and continue on with our Suzette stitch until we have 2 stitches left. Now at the end of our row 4, like I said, we're going to close it off with just 1 half double crochet, so yarn over, skip 1 stitch into that last stitch with just 1 half double crochet, and now our even numbered row is completed, and for every even number row, we should all end with 2 more stitches than our previous row. Then just to get started on our row 5 or our odd number rows, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. We're going to start this row off with an increase of 4 half doubles as well, so yarn over. Into that first stitch with 1, same first stitch with 2, same first stitch with 3, same first stitch with 4 half double crochets. After that increase, skip a stitch into the next with our Suzette stitch. After that, make our way all the way down until we have 2 stitches left, because at the end of every odd number row, we're going to close the row off with an increase. We are nearly at the end of our row 5. Now we're going to close it off with an increase. So ending the row with an increase, it is going to be an increase of 3 half double crochets, so yarn over. Into that last stitch, insert with 1, same last stitch with 2, and into the same last stitch with a third half double crochet. Now from here, it is going to be a repeat of these 2 previous rows until we now have a piece that can reach from mid-bust. So the tail end is going to stay at mid-bust and the bottom of our piece, so opposite from where our stitch marker is, can reach down to our underbust or roughly where an underwire would lay. Now we will end right after an odd number row that will be along the top, then we can continue on with the width of our cup together from there. So we are back. We have just completed the width of our cup. Now I have a total of 9 rows. My width from the point to my end is just about 3 inches or 8 centimeters, and my increase height is just about 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters. Now from here, we're going to continue on with the width of our cup, but we don't need to add more increases along the bottom since this already reaches our underbust. Now before we get started on the following row, we're just going to make sure we're inserting a stitch marker into the bottom of that last row, just so we know where the increases for the bottom is going to end. Now, since we all should be along the top, all we're going to do from here is the following row, so our following even number row is going to be done per usual. So just to talk you guys through it, chain 2, flip our work. Start with an increase of 4 half doubles. Suzette stitch all the way down, making sure we're closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. Then I'll meet everyone back after that row. So our following increase row is completed. Now the following row is going to start with the chain 1. We're going to do our Suzette stitch all the way down, making sure that we're still ending off the row with an increase because we want more height for the top, but blunt along the bottom. So from where we're at, chain 1 and flip. So into that first stitch, we're just going to start with a single and a double crochet into that first stitch, skip a stitch, single crochet and double into the next, and just continue on with our Suzette stitches until we all have 2 stitches left. So we've just made our way all the way up with our following row, leaving the last 2 stitches. Now at the end of the row, we're all going to do an increase of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, skip that second to last stitch, and into that last, we're going to insert with 1, into that same last stitch with a second, same last stitch with a third half double crochet. Now all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we now have a width that can reach from the center of our chest, making sure that the point is still at mid-bust and the bottom of our piece is still at our under-bust, until we have a portion that can reach all the way over to mid-collarbone, or roughly where you'd like for the strap to be. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an odd number row so that again, we'll be along the top, then we can work straight into the shoulder together from there. So we are back. We have just completed the width of our cup. Now I have a total of 13 rows. This width is just about 4 inches or 10 centimeters. My increase height is now 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Now what we're going to do from here, since we all should have ended along the top, is make an even number chain that reaches the top of our shoulder. So how we're going to place this up to ourselves is this bottom blunt portion is still going to stay at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would be, and therefore this point that we have would be placed center chest, mid bust, then go ahead and make your chain. Now I needed roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, so I went ahead and made a chain 20. Now the following shoulder rows are going to be our Suzette stitch rows with no increases and no decreases, so we're just going to block off that last chain and chain 1. So into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with our first Suzette stitch, which is always a single and a double crochet. Then make our way down our chain by skipping a chain into the next single and double, then make our way all the way down towards the bottom. When we have 2 stitches left, we're going to close off the row with 1 half double crochet into that last stitch, making sure the end is blunt. Then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. We have made our way all the way down with our first shoulder row. Now all we're going to do from here is basically repeat the shoulder row. So chain 1, flip our work, Suzette stitch all the way down, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet into that last stitch until we have a portion that can stretch from mid-chest all the way over until this can stretch over to the corner of our underarm. Then I'll meet everyone back right after an even number row so that we'll be along the bottom. Then we can finish up with our underarm portion together from there. So we are back. I've just completed my shoulder portion. I now have a total of 18 rows. This width is just about 5 inches or 13 centimeters now. Now from here, we're going to finish up with our underarm. So first things first, we're all going to put this work up to ourselves, making sure that the top of our shoulder is still staying at the top of our shoulder and the bottom is still staying at our underbust. Then we're just going to insert our stitch marker into any even numbered stitch from the top that's nearest to the corner of our underarm. Now I've inserted my stitch marker into my 26th stitch from the top. That's just about 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters. Now from here, I'm going to do my Suzette stitch all the way up, leaving 4 stitches right before my stitch marker, and then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way up with our underarm row, leaving the last 4 stitches right before our stitch marker. Now we're going to close it off with a decrease of 3 double crochets. So start with the yarn over, and we're going to skip that following stitch. Into that next stitch, we're going to insert, pull through for 3 loops on our hook. Into that next stitch, pull through for 4 loops on our hook. Then into that next stitch, which should be the stitch right before our stitch marker, pull through for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then from here, yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops, leaving us with 2 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through 2. Now the following row isn't going to have any increases or decreases, so all we're going to do is chain 1, flip our work and do our Suzette stitch all the way down, closing off the row with just 1 half double crochet, and I'll meet you back. So we are back. Our first 2 underarm rows are completed. Now what we're going to do from here is continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we have a portion that can now reach over to mid underarm, making sure that we all end right after an odd number row so that we'll be along the top. So just as a refresher, our odd number rows are going to end with a decrease of 3 double crochets, then a following Suzette stitch row with no increases, no decreases. I'll meet you back once we have our underarm portion completed. So we are back. We have just completed the entirety of one of our front panels. Now I have a total of 23 rows, this width just about 6 inches or 15 centimeters. When one is completed, make a second panel that is exactly the same. Then once we have both of them completed, we can put them away and we can get started on the back panel. So getting started on the back panel, we're all going to start by making a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last underarm row. For those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 25 stitches. So getting started on my back panel, I'm going to start with a chain 25. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to do our Suzette stitch row. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Into that chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook. Insert with our first Suzette stitch, so just 1 single crochet, and then also a double crochet. From here, since we already know how to do our Suzette stitches, we're going to skip 1 stitch, Suzette stitch into the next until we have 2 chains left. We've made our way down with our first row, leaving the last 2 chains. Now we're going to do an increase. So how we're going to do an increase, remember at the end of the row, into that last chain, we should have 2 stitches left. We're going to do an increase of 3 half double crochets. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. We should have 2 more stitches than chains that we made. Then our following row won't have any increases or decreases. So chain 1, flip our work and make our way down with our Suzette stitch, closing off our row with just 1 half double crochet. We are back and our first 2 rows are completed. Now from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 2 rows until we have the same amount of underarm rows that we made for the front panel. So for those of you that have my numbers, I had a total of 5 underarm rows for the front panel. So I'll meet you back when I have a total of 5 underarm rows for my back. So we are back and our underarm portion for the back panel is completed. I have my 5 rows that I need. Then what we're going to do from here is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our front panel. Then what we're going to do from here is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our front panel's underarm portion. Now for those that have my numbers, I skipped a total of 26 stitches. So from here, I made a chain 26. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch. Into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with our first Suzette stitch, and we're going to continue on with our Suzette stitch, making our way all the way down, closing off our row with 1 half double crochet. So we are back. We have just completed our first row for the back panel portion, and all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat this row until we now have a portion that can reach from mid collarbone across our back to mid collarbone. Then I'll meet everyone back along the bottom, so right after an even number row, then we can finish up with our underarm portion together from there. So we are back. We have just completed the width of our back panel. Now I have a total of 36 rows. This width is just about 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Now we're going to do our underarm portion. Now the second underarm portion for the back panel is actually going to be done exactly the same way as the underarm portion made for the front panel. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to insert our stitch marker into the same amount of stitches that we skipped when we got started on our front panel's underarm portion. Then our following row is going to end with a decrease of 3 double crochets. Following row is just going to be a normal Suzette stitch row for the same amount of rows that we have for our first underarm portion, which should also be the same as the amount of rows as our underarm portion for the front panel. Once we have that completed, do a chain up 1 and cut, then we can get started on seaming everything together. So we are back. Now that our back panel's underarm portion is completed, now we're going to seam everything together. So first things first, we're all going to place our front panel on top of our back panel, making sure that the underarms are aligned. Then insert your hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to pull through and do a chain of 1 to secure. So pull through and chain 1. Then we're just going to do a single crochet seam. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert. First stitch into the back panel, insert, single crochet. Again, first stitch into the front, first stitch into the back, and single, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and repeat on the other side. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up our sides. Now we're going to seam up our shoulder. So making sure that our work is flipped wrong side out, meaning the seam that we just did is along the outside, we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of both the front and the back panel and pull through. Then we're all going to chain 1 to secure and just put 1 single crochet into every side row. So just to do the first one, finding our first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop, insert. Into that top loop within the back panel, find that top loop, and single crochet around everything. Once more into our following side row, this is mine right here within the front panel, following side row within the back panel, and single crochet, and continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut, then repeat on the other side. So we are back. Everything is all seamed up, and now what we're going to do is get started on the bottom, but we're going to do the back of this first. So what we're first going to do is single crochet along the bottom of just the back panel, so from our seam to seam. So making sure the work is flipped right side out, we're going to insert our hook into the stitch that's nearest to our seam along the right side, mainly because we want to show the front of our single crochets. Then go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook. We are going to pull our working yarn through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then from here, all we're going to do is alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row until we reach our other side seam. So just to show you guys, this is my first side row. I'm going to find that top loop and insert, starting with just 1 single crochet. Then into our following side row, which is this one right here, find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets, and that's basically it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way across until we're worked into the row right before our following side seam. Now, as one really quick tip, the amount of stitches that we need to have from our first stitch all the way down to our last needs to be in multiples of 5. So if you guys need to add an additional stitch or 2 into that last side row, go ahead. But if it works better, if you take away a stitch or 2, which is actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to be taking away 1, but I'll meet you guys back once when I've made my way down just to show you guys, then go ahead and do that as well. Go ahead and make your way all the way down, and I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our single crochet row. Now, just as a really quick tip, I did say that the amount of stitches that we have needs to end in multiples of 5. So for my original single crochets, I would have had a total of 61 stitches. So just to take away that 1 stitch so I can have a total of 60, all I did was into that second to last side row, I just did 1 single crochet because it should have been 2 single crochets. Then into that last, I just did 1 because we do want to make sure that we are making our way across to our other side seam. I did do a chain up of 1 and cut. Now what we're going to do from here is insert our hook into that chain space that we made when we got started on this single crochet row. Then we're all going to make a chain that is in multiples of 8, the length that we'd like for the bottom portion of this top to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 8 inches or 20 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 40. Now once we have our chain, what we're going to do is our almond stitch all the way back up. So we're going to block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then we're all going to start with 4 slip stitches. So starting with that second chain from our hook, or that chain that we blocked off, we're going to insert our hook, yarn over, and gently pull through everything on our hook. We do want to make sure that we're not tugging through too tightly, otherwise the following row will be too tight to work into. Into that following chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through everything, that is our second slip stitch. Into that following chain, insert with a third. Into that following chain, insert with our 4th slip stitch. Now that we all have our 4 slip stitches, we're then going to do 4 half double crochets. Yarn over, into that next chain, insert with 1 half double crochet, into that following chain with a second, following chain with a third, and following chain with a 4th half double crochet. From here, all we're going to do is alternate between 4 slips, 4 halves, making our way all the way down our chain, then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have made our way down with our row 1. Now what we're going to do from here is connect it into the base. So how we're going to connect our row 1 into the base, we should have all ended right after 4 half double crochets, is we're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, that's our first single crochet that we made for our prep row. There's our second. Into that second stitch into the base, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch into the base doesn't actually count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, we are going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. That slip stitch into the base also does not count as a stitch, and flip our work. Now what we're going to do from here is just mirror the stitches that we have from our previous row, making our way all the way down. Now since we all should have ended right after 4 half double crochets, we're now going to do 4 back loop half double crochets. So starting with a yarn over, into that first stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert with 1, next stitch with a second, next stitch with a third, and next stitch with a fourth. Then we're going to do 4 back loop slip stitches. So into that next stitch's back loop, remembering not to tug too tightly, there is 1. Into that following stitch with a second, following stitch with our third, and following stitch with our fourth. From here, continue with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. So we are back and our first 2 rows are completed. Now our almond stitch is a 4-row repeat, so to get started on the following row, chain 2 and flip. So getting started on our row 3 or any odd number row, it is going to be the opposite from what our previous row stitches are. So as you guys can see, we all should have ended right after our back loop slip stitches. So our following row is going to start with back loop half double crochets. So yarn over into that first stitch's back loop with 1 back loop half, next with a second until we have a total of 4 half double crochets within the back loops. And now that we have that, 4 back loop slip stitches as well. Then continue with our 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips until we reach the end of the row. So we are back and our row 3 is completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So how we're going to connect our row 3 is going to be a little bit different than how we connected our row 1. So connecting our row 3, since we all should have ended right after 4 back loop slip stitches, is just find that next available stitch into the base and insert with a slip stitch. Now our row 3 is actually completed. Now to get started on our row 4, we are going to work our way up to the following row by slip stitching into that following stitch into the base. Remember, none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch. Flip our work and start with 4 back loop slip stitches, then 4 back loop half double crochets, then just repeat until we reach the end of the row. So we are back. We have just completed our first 4 rows. Now all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 4 previous rows until we don't have any more stitches left to work into the back panel prep row. Then once we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut, then I'll meet you back so we can get started on the front panel. So we are back. We have just completed making our way all the way across our back panel with our almond stitches. Now, right after that last row, we did do a chain up 1 and cut. Now we're going to do something similar along the front panel. So let's all make sure that our work is still flipped right side out, then we're going to flip our work over. Now what we're going to do is a single crochet row along the bottom of both of our front panels, and this is going to be a part of our connection as well. So what we're going to do is 1, again, make sure the work is right side up, then insert our hook into the right side nearest to our side seam. Now I did fold in my almond stitch for my back panel just so it's a little bit easier to see, but just like how we did for the back panel, we're going to start with 1 single crochet into that first side row. So I'm going to start with a chain 1, then finding my first side row, this is mine right here, insert with 1. This is my following side row, I'm going to insert in through there with 2, and we're going to continue on with this until we're worked into the side row that's right before our stitch marker side row. Now the amount of stitches that we have here also must be in multiples of 5, so go ahead and add or take away a stitch or 2 if you guys need to. Then I'll meet you back once we're worked into this side row right before this stitch marker stitch. So we are back. We have just single crocheted all the way down until we're worked into the side row that's right before our stitch marker stitch. Now, like I said, it does need to be in multiples of 5, so I have a total of 20 stitches here. Now what we're going to do from this side row all the way until our point, again, is to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row, this needing to be in multiples of 5 as well. But this time we're going to start with 2. So I'm going to take out this stitch marker for now, then into that following side row, which this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop, and I'm going to start with 2 single crochets into that side row. So there is 1 into that same side row with a second. Now before I move on, make sure we're inserting a stitch marker into that first stitch that we did so that we know where the curve up our cup starts. Then into our following side row, which should be this little gap that we have right here, insert with 1 single crochet. Again, into our following side row, insert with 2 single crochet. Into our following side row, which is this gap again, insert with 1. Continue on, alternating until we reach our last side row right here. And again, from this stitch marker all the way to the end, it needs to be in multiples of 5, so go ahead and add or take away some stitches if you need to. So we are back. I have just made my way up with my single crochets, working my way up my cup. And now, just for this portion, I have a total of 15 stitches. Now what we're going to do from here is just reach our hook over to our other front panel that we have, and then just repeat. So from this point, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets into that first side row. So into that first side row, go ahead and insert, starting with 2 single crochets, and we do want to make sure that this first single crochet is kind of tight, because this is going to be one portion of the connection. We're going to go in with another single crochet row later just to smooth everything out. But there's 2 single crochets into that following side row with just 1. Now we're going to continue on alternating again until we're worked into this stitch marker stitch. And just as a quick tip, if we needed to add or take away a stitch on this side, we're going to do the same thing over here because we need the same amount of stitches on both sides. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just single crocheted our way down our cup, and that last stitch that we have into that side row, I inserted my stitch marker into there to match this stitch marker over here. Now, just as a really quick tip, we do want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the first single crochet that we have on this side of our cup as well, so we should have 2 middle stitches. Then from here until we reach our side seam again, continue to alternate between 1 to 2 single crochets into every side row. And again, if we needed to add or take away a stitch on this side, we're going to do the same on this side. Then once we reach all the way over to our side seam and we have the same amount of stitches, do a chain up of 1 and cut. So now that our single crochet row is complete, the next we're going to do is do the almond stitch that we did for the back panel. So right after we did a chain up of 1 and cut, we're going to insert our hook into that chain space that we made when we got started on the single crochet row. Then start by making a chain for the same amount of chains that we made for the back panel. So for those that have my numbers, I made a chain 40, so I'll be making another chain 40. Then we're going to do our same 4-row almond stitch repeat until we're worked into the stitch that's right before our stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet everyone back so we can do our increase together. So we are back. We have just completed the width portion of the bottom of front panel. Now we're going to do the increase portion of the almond stitch detail. So what we're going to do from here, we all should have ended along the bottom, and the first few stitches right here should be half double crochets. So now to do the following row in our row sequence, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves, and we're going to leave the last 4 stitches so that we can do our increase together. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way up with our first increase row. We all should have left the last 4 stitches. Now what we're going to do, since the last set of stitches that we should have done should have been 4 back loop slip stitches, we're going to start with 3 back loop half double crochets, so just 1 back loop half into the next 3 stitches. So into that 4th to last with 1 half, into that 3rd to last with our 2nd half double crochet, and into our 2nd to last with our 3rd half double crochet. So now that we have our 3 halves, we should have just 1 stitch left at the end of the row. What we're going to do into that last stitch is an increase of 5 back loop half double crochets. So yarn over. Into that last stitch's back loop, we're going to insert, starting with 1, same back loop with a 2nd, same back loop with a 3rd, same back loop with our 4th, and same back loop with our 5th half double crochet. Now the total amount of stitches that we should have for this row should be 4 more stitches than our previous row because of that increase that we just did. And now we're going to connect it into the base. So that's going to be done the same way as our previous row. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out. We're going to count up the next 2 available stitches. So there's 1, there's our second. We're going to slip stitch into there, and now our first increase row is complete. Now to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that following stitch into the base. So that as per usual. Go ahead and insert with a slip stitch, remembering that none of those slip stitches count as a stitch, and we're going to flip our work. Now that we have flipped our work, to get started on the second increase row, which we're actually not increasing into this row, it's just the second row on this side, we're going to do 4 back loop slip stitches. Now to get started on the second row for this increase portion of the bottom, we're all going to start with 4 back loop slip stitches. So this is per usual. So there's 1, next stitch, 2, 3, and 4. Next is 4 back loop halves. Then until the end of the row, continue to alternate between 4 back loop slips and 4 back loop halves, and I'll meet you back. So we are back, and the first 2 rows for this increase portion are completed. Now to get started on our row 3, we're going to chain 2, flip our work, start with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips, and we're going to make our way all the way up until we reach the end of the row. So we are back. We have just made our way up with our third row for this increase portion. Now we're just going to connect it into the base the same way that we were doing the non-increase portions. So even though this is a half double crochet section, that's completely fine. All we're going to do is just slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. Remember that that doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch up that following stitch into the base. And remember that none of those slip stitches into the base count as a stitch, and we're going to flip our work. And making our way down, we're going to do 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. So we are back, and the first 4 rows for this increase portion are complete. Now, for this increase and eventually the decrease portion, it is actually going to be an 8-row repeat because of the way that we're increasing. The idea is still the same as the regular almond stitch detail though, so just to get started on the following 4 rows, the last set of stitches should have been half double crochets from our last row. So from here, just chain 1, flip our work, start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves, making our way all the way down, leaving the last 4 stitches, then I'll meet you back to increase. We've just made our way up with our 5th row for this increase portion, and we should have left the last 4 stitches. Now, the last set of stitches that everyone should have done should have been 4 back loop halves. Now we're going to do 3 back loop slip stitches. So just 1 back loop slip stitch into each of the next 3 stitches. Now that we have our 3 back loop slip stitches into that last stitch, we're all going to do another increase of 5 back loop half double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, and insert your hook into that last stitch's back loop with 1 back loop half. That is our second back loop half. That is our third. That is our 4th and our 5th back loop half double crochet. Now that we have that increase, we're going to slip stitch it into the base the same way that we've been doing whenever we connect our first row into the base. So we're going to count up 1, 2 stitches. Into that second stitch into the base, insert with a slip stitch. Remember that slip stitch doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, and flip our work. Then to do the 6th row for this increase portion, start with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. We've just completed our 6th row for this increase portion. Now we're about to do our 7th. So all we're going to do is chain 2, flip our work. Start with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips until we reach the end of the row. We have made our way up with our 7th row for this increase portion. Now we're going to connect it into the base the same way that we've been doing. So all we're going to do is find that next available stitch into the base, insert in through there with a slip stitch. Remember, that doesn't count as a stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch, into the base, still doesn't count as a stitch, flip our work. Then to do the 8th row in our 8-row repeat for this increase portion, we're going to start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves to reach the end of the row. Alrighty, we are back, and we have just completed our first 8 rows for this increase portion. We're going to continue to repeat our 8 previous rows until we're worked into our first middle stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet everyone back so we can do our decrease portion. Alright, so we are back. We have just completed the increase portion of the bottom. Now we're going to do the decrease portion. So we all should have ended along the bottom. What we're going to do from here is chain 1, flip our work, start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves, making our way all the way down until we have 5 stitches left at the end of the row. Then I'll meet you back to do our decrease. So we are back. We have made our way all the way down and we are nearly complete with our first decrease row. Now the second decrease row is going to be a little bit different for everyone, and that's going to depend on the last set of stitches that we just did right before we have our 5 stitches left. So for those of us that just have 3 back loop half double crochets before our last 5 available stitches, I will show you guys how to do the following rows right now. But for those of you that have 3 back loop slip stitches, I will show you guys how to do that, but those will be in the following clips, and you can find that link within the description. And our decreases are like this because we had an increase of 8 rows, so we will have a decrease of 8 rows as well. So we just want to make sure that all of our almond stitches are lining up perfectly. So for those of us that have 3 half double crochets, we are all going to close off the row with a decrease of 5 back loop double crochets. So starting with the yarn over, we're going to insert our hook into that 5th to last back loop, pull through. Into that next stitches back loop, pull through, next stitches back loop, pull through, next stitches back loop, which should be our second to last, pull through, and then into our last stitches back loop, and pull through. Now we should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on our hook. From here, we're just going to yarn over and pull through the first 6 loops on our hook. And that should give us 2 loops left, then just yarn over and pull through 2. Once when that decrease is completed, we're going to connect it into the base. Now connecting it into the base is going to be done the same way. So we're just going to count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, which is my stitch marker stitch, and there's 2. Into that second stitch, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, which is per usual, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, and flip our work. Then make our way down with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. Our second row for the decrease portion is complete. Now to get started on the third, since we're along the bottom, chain 2, flip our work, start with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips, making our way all the way up. Our first 3 rows for the decrease portion are completed. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So now just connecting it into the base is going to be done the same way as our previous row. So into that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work. Then to do the 4th row for the decrease portion, start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves to reach the end of the row. So we are back and our first 4 rows for the decrease portion are completed. Now, since this is also an 8 row repeat, to get started on the following row, chain 1, flip our work. Start with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves until we all have a total of 5 stitches left. So we have made our way down and now we're going to do our decrease. Now the last set of stitches that everyone should have done should have been 3 back loop slip stitches. Now what we're going to do is a decrease of 5 back loop double crochets. So to do that, we're all going to yarn over. Insert your hook into that 5th to last back loop, pull through, 4th to last back loop, pull through, 3rd to last, pull through, 2nd to last, pull through, and last back loop and pull through to get a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 loops on our hook. Then all we're going to do from here is yarn over, pull through the first 6 loops to get a total of 2 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through 2, and that is our decrease of 5 back loop double crochets. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So all we're going to do is count up the next 2 available stitches. There's 1, there's 2. Into that second stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Now that slip stitch, remember, doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, all we're going to do is slip stitch up that following stitch. Still doesn't count as a stitch. Flip our work and continue on with this row, starting with 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves to reach the end of the row. Now we have just made our way all the way down. Now just to do the following row, we're going to chain 2, flip our work. Start with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. So we have just made our way all the way up. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So what we're going to do is just slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. That is per usual. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that following stitch into the base, flip our work, then make our way down with 4 back loop halves, 4 back loop slips to reach the end of the row. So we are back. Now, all we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 8 previous rows until we're worked into our next stitch marker stitch. Now, for those of you that have started your decreases with the 3 back loop slip stitches, what you guys are going to do, your 4 next rows are going to be the 4 rows that we started off with. So that link will be linked in the description as well, just to make sure that you have all your rows down. But either way, we're just going to continue that until we're worked into our stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet everyone back. So we are back. The decrease portion of our bottom panel is completed. We are worked into our stitch marker stitch. Now from here, we're just going to continue on with the rest of our almond stitches with absolutely no increases, no decreases, connecting it into the base the same way that we've been doing this entire time until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. So just continue on with our almond stitch sequence, starting with our 4 back loop slips, 4 back loop halves. It's basically a repeat of our first 4 rows. Then I'll meet everyone back. We don't have any more stitches left to work into. Then we'll seam it all together. So we are back. We have just made our way all the way down until we don't have any more stitches left with the rest of our almond stitches. Now from here, we're going to seam it up. So this is going to be the same exact seam that we did for the sides. So just to talk you guys through it, we're going to flip our work wrong side out, then do our same single crochet seam all the way up. When we have that completed, repeat the same thing on the other side. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed seaming up all of our sides. Then what we're going to do from here is our neckline. So first things first, we're going to make sure the work is flipped right side out, right side up. We're going to insert our hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our shoulder seam. Then just working way across our back first, I'm going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row, pretty much the same way that we did the shoulder seam. Then once we reach this other shoulder seam over here and making our way down, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every stitch. Then once we reach our first side row within the front panel, I'll meet everyone back so we can put 2 single crochet into each of those. So we've just made our way all the way across the top of our back panel and down our front panel, and now we have reached our first side seam within the front panel. Now all we're going to do into these is put 2 single crochets into each. So finding our first side row, this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1, same top loop with a second. Then this is my next side row, so find that one and then insert with 2. So there's 1, same top loop with a second, and that's it. From here, we're just going to continue on with 2 single crochet into every side row. Then once we reach our single crochets, 1 single crochet into every stitch, then slip stitch into that chain space. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back and we have just completed single crocheting along our neckline. Now we're going to get started on our tiny little cap sleeve. So all this is going to be is we're going to try our piece on, then we're going to insert our stitch marker into any stitch into the outside of our shoulder where we'd like for the edge of our cap sleeve to be. Now I inserted my stitch marker into the 13th stitch from the shoulder seam on both sides within the front and the back panel. Now we're just going to do some more Suzette stitch rows until we get the width that we want. So I'm just going to insert my hook into my stitch marker stitch. Now it can be within the front or the back because we are going to be flipping our work back and forth, so it'll all kind of look the same anyways. So now that our hook is into our stitch marker stitch, we're going to pull through and do a chain 2. Now that chain 2 won't count as a stitch, we just want the height, and we're all going to start with a decrease of 3 half double crochets, and that first hook insert is going to insert into that same stitch as our chain 2. So yarn over into that same stitch that our chain 2 is in, pull through, next stitch, pull through, and next stitch, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. From here, yarn over and pull through all 5. Then we're going to skip 1 stitch. Into the next, we're going to do our following Suzette stitch. Now all we're going to do from here is our Suzette stitch, so skip a stitch, Suzette stitch set, making our way all the way across our shoulder seam until we have 2 stitches left right before our following stitch marker stitch. Then I'll meet you back. So we just made our way down with our Suzette stitches. We should all have 1, 2 stitches left right before our stitch marker. Now we're going to skip 1 stitch, then do a decrease of 2 half double crochets. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch into that next stitch, pull through, then into our stitch marker stitch, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 4. Now let's get started on our row 2. So we're all going to chain 1 and flip. So to work our way up to the following row, we're going to slip stitch into that first available stitch. That slip stitch isn't actually going to count as a stitch. We just want to work our way in towards the following row a little bit, just so we can have a really cute cap sleeve. Now, since that doesn't count as a stitch, that first stitch of this row is going to be a decrease of 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, pull through, second, pull through, third, pull through for a total of 5 loops on our hook, then yarn over and pull through all 5. And since this is the first stitch of this row, go ahead and insert a stitch marker into that stitch just so we know where it starts. So now that our stitch marker is into place, into that following stitch, just insert with our first Suzette stitch, so a single and a double all the way down until we have 3 stitches left. So we are back and we shall have 1, 2, 3 stitches left. Now we're just going to close out the row with a decrease of 2 half double crochets, so yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch and into the next we're going to insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook, yarn over, pull through all 4, and our row 2 is complete. From here it is going to be a repeat of this row until we get the cap sleeve width that we like. Then I'll meet you back. So we are back. We have just completed our cap sleeve. Now for my cap sleeve, I just did a total of 4 rows. Once we have one side completed, do a chain up a 1 and cut. Repeat on the other side. Once we have both of them completed, we are all done. The last thing we have to do is simply weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!